would I be the asshole if I stopped hosting my husband's family holiday dinners? My husband and I have been married for 5 years, and I don't want to host his family events anymore. I've done Thanksgiving, Christmas, some barbecues, and some other various events over the years. Once in a while, his daughter may bring a plate of deviled eggs or a dish of baked beans, but when it comes time to clean up, everyone goes into the living room to socialize and watch TV. My husband doesn't help with anything, cleaning the house, cooking, dishes, etc. Part of me feels guilty because I don't want to be a catalyst preventing him from spending time with his family in our home. I am not saying he can't spend time with his family. I just don't want to be the one who gets stuck doing all of the work. His argument is, if I don't do it, then it won't happen. Oh, well.
What? Oh, like the get-togethers.
Yeah.
I thought he meant the cleaning. I'm like,
probably that too.
Yeah, literally, goddamn.
He says neither his kids will step up and volunteer to host. Naturally, his first wife did all of the family events up until she got sick and passed away 7 to 8 years ago. He says his kids are just used to their mom doing all the work. My argument is they will never step up if I keep doing it. They aren't kids. They are in their 50s with their own kids who are in their 20s.
Oh.
I really don't want to keep putting myself in a position of doing all of this work for people who basically ignore me the entire time they are there while they visit with their dad, eat the food I prepare, which has to be cooked the way they like it, swap stories, and joke amongst themselves and leave. It's not just 1 or 2 hours. It's usually 4 hours plus. I try to interact when an opportunity arises, but I'm literally sitting in the kitchen the entire time because someone is always sitting in my chair and all the seats are filled. I often think about just walking out of the house to go for a walk, but then the food would burn. I don't want to be the center of attention, but just some good basic manners would be nice. Most of the grandkids behave better than their parents. His son and daughter were not very pleasant towards me when their father and I started dating. His daughter was downright rude to me on a few occasions, and his son, to this day, doesn't acknowledge I'm in the room.
Wow.
His daughter has gotten better, but it's still not what I would call great. He figured she behaved badly because she lost her free meal ticket because he used to pay several of her bills. There has been absolutely no issues with the rest of the family, i.e. his brother, sister-in-law, nieces, cousins, etc. They've all been great. His brother and his wife have been awesome. His son told his dad privately he has an issue with our age difference. Nothing I can do about that.
What is the age difference?
No mention of ages so far. I've tried to initiate conversations with him to be cordial, but it's a 50-50 chance if he will even respond. He has never reciprocated. I finally decided I've tried, and after 5 years, I can wipe the slate clean with good conscience. I'm done. Last year, I tried to get out of doing Thanksgiving by not inviting anyone and cooking for just the two of us. His daughter ended up inviting herself and her family over with a 1 to 2 day notice. I was shocked. Who does that? I told my husband, well, that didn't work. Of course, he didn't correct her when he had the chance on the phone either. He hates confrontation, especially with his kids. Plus, it worked out in his favor by not speaking up. I'm not stupid. He got what he wanted, a home-cooked meal with his family. I tried the same thing again, not inviting anyone for Christmas, since I ended up having to do Thanksgiving. But again, no one volunteered to host at their place. He offered to buy a smoked ham and some sides from a local venue to help alleviate my stress. So I caved in and tried it. Honestly, it still ended up being almost just as much work. And again, I spent 4 hours in the kitchen being ignored. Not to mention all the time spent cleaning before, during, and after. No, he doesn't help. When I finally came to terms, my husband was never going to speak up. I hinted around his daughter, perhaps she could host the next one. She said she didn't want to have to clean.
Whoa, that is so disrespectful.
She's already had her youngest son call his grandpa yesterday, same thing she did last year, to find out what our plans were for Thanksgiving this year. Again, they were told we weren't making plans this year. Does this mean she's going to invite herself over again this year? Hosting events has never been in my comfort zone. I've been alone most of my entire life. I can feel my anxiety levels already rising. Am I the asshole for not wanting to continue, or should I just suck it up so he can spend time with his family? I would be perfectly fine if he took his family out to dinner at a restaurant instead. Better yet, take them out and leave me at home. I'd be totally fine with that too. If they don't want to interact with me, then so be it. But don't treat me that way in my own home, especially when I go through all the work and stress involved. It just isn't worth the aggravation. Am I the asshole for not wanting to spend every holiday with my in-laws? Quick backstory for context. I've been non-contact with both of my parents for close to 9 years. They're both still alive and both have their issues that I will not get into here. Their actions have led me to the difficult decision to go non-contact with them. My wife agrees with and supports this decision. My wife and her family are the opposite of mine. Her mom and dad have been married for several decades. She has 2 sisters and they are all very close. I appreciate her family and they are all generally good people. My wife and I have been married for over 10 years and we do have 2 young children. The issue at hand. Ever since I made the decision to go non-contact with my parents, my wife has taken it upon herself to plan every holiday and even several of our summertime family vacations with her family. She makes these plans with her parents and sisters for all holidays like Christmas and Thanksgiving, and I am very rarely included in the planning process. About a year ago, I spoke with my wife about this. I told her I do not appreciate her planning holidays without giving me the opportunity to be a part of the planning. I also told her I do not want to spend every holiday with her parents and sisters. It is not that they are bad people or that I do not like them. I just do think it is fair that she believes that since I do not have a relationship with my parents, that by default, I have to spend every holiday with my in-laws. I told my wife I would like to go back to how things were before we were non-contact with my parents, and we could share half of the holidays with her family, and I would like to spend the other half of the holidays doing something with just my wife and our kids. Since I do not have a relationship with my parents or any extended family, my wife and kids are really all I have. My wife does not agree with this. She believes that since I don't have a relationship with my parents, that by default we should spend every holiday with my in-laws. This leads me to ask, am I the asshole for not wanting to spend every holiday with my in-laws?
I, 25 female, called the cops on my spouse, 28 male last night, and now I don't know how to fix it. So last night I went out to dinner and then a few drinks with my friend. I came home afterwards and my boyfriend of 8.5 years had a few beers too, which was fine. We were both in a good mood and everything was great. I gave him my leftovers from dinner and he ate them and was very giddy and grateful. Fast forward about an hour. We were listening to music and the volume had been at a reasonable volume, but one of his favorite songs come on and he wanted to blast it up. Out of respect for my neighbors who have kids in the same building, I tried to reason with him to keep it a bit lower, but still a louder volume than what we had been listening up to this point. He kept insisting that he would not back down. He tried to grab the remote out of my hands, and neither of us were letting go. We struggled for about a minute, at which point I grabbed his thumb to pry his hand off the remote, and I held onto it with a good amount of force for a few seconds more, moving his hand away from me. While I still had his thumb in my grip, he hit me in the jaw, and that's when I let go. He said I tried to break his thumb and that this was a defensive hit, and then tried to continue reaching for the remote again. He was not touching me at this point, but I warned him if he didn't calm down and back off that I would call 911. He said again that it was self-defense and I wouldn't do it. So I dialed 911 and showed him before pressing the talk button. He again said, "Go ahead, you're not going to do it," and then reached at my phone to press the talk button himself. And I backed my phone away from him, surprised for a moment, but then just decided to hit the button and go ahead with the call. The cops showed up while I was still talking with dispatch, and we went over the incident outside while other officers went in to arrest him for assault. After giving my statement at the station and going over everything, I then realized that he was actually going to have to go to court for this, and I've basically been crying on and off ever since. No incident like this has ever happened before with us, and he has been under some stress with work this past week, and he has a short temper when drinking, but never gets violent with me or anyone when he's drunk. He doesn't even throw stuff around or break things either, just gets into arguments a bit more easily. I don't want this to end up giving him a record and mess up the rest of his life in terms of jail time, or even just making it difficult for him to get employment because of this one incident where yes, he hit me, but I'm not really injured, just shocked honestly. And now there's a no contact order on him until his court date, that's a month from now. I honestly just want him to come home so we can talk things through, but because this is considered assault, our entire relationship is up in the air right now, and I hate it so much, I wish last night had never happened. We live in Ontario, Canada, by the way. Does anyone know how I could get the Crown to drop the charges, or at least drop the no contact order?
I'm leaving my boyfriend to go back to my ex, and I don't get why my boyfriend is so upset about it. Story time. So 2 years ago, I dated this guy called Steve. I don't know if I really believe in soulmates, but if they do exist, Steve is my soulmate. We broke up because it was a right person, wrong time situation. When we broke up, we both said if we were meant to be, we'd find each other again in the future. But recently, I started dating this guy called Dave. And I had said from the start I wasn't intending to get into a relationship with this guy. It was just supposed to be like a casual vibe. It was like friends with benefits at most. He asked me why and I explained everything. The conversation went a little bit like this. Why don't you want a serious relationship? Because I have some unfinished business with my ex. That last chapter isn't finished, so why would I start a new one? Well, why can't you just close the chapter now? Because I'm not ready. But when will you be ready? I don't know. Well, whatever, I'll just wait for you anyway. I can't lie and say I don't have feelings for him, but he's just nothing compared to Steve. So after 5 months of dating, he finally stopped asking me to be his girlfriend around month 3. I mean, that's probably because I said, if you ask me one more time, I am going to step away from you. Anytime we started to get a little bit too serious for my liking, I reminded him that we weren't exclusive and that there was no strings attached. I even encouraged him to date other people. I was open and honest this whole time. So cut to the chase. Steve is back. I ran into him in a coffee shop the other day. We were there for so long we ended up getting kicked out. It was like everything came back at once. That night he took me out on a date and we talked so much that our food went cold. He was telling me all about his life, all the changes that he'd made, and all the reasons and obstacles as to why we broke up last time had all disappeared. So then I told him about my life and I also told him about Dave. And he asked if there was any chances for him. So on the way home from the date, I immediately called Dave and told him everything. It destroyed him. So after this, I waited 3 weeks before officially breaking up with Dave. Dave then proceeded to call me the devil. I was honest with him the whole time. So what do you think?